Let me hit record. Good job. So good evening, everyone. I hope you're having a very fantastic evening. As usual, guys, we're continuing with the series for JavaScript. We started very well, like almost like 3 weeks ago, and the progress has been very well. We want to continue with the same progress where we for this part, after we finish this, I'll have to give you an exercise so that you can go and solve it. All right, so you'll have to solve that exercise so that you can actually be good with whatever we are trying to learn here. Another thing also, I want you to go ahead and create GitHub's account. Go and set up a GitHub account where you'll have a GitHub account. Then from tomorrow, we will have a Git class where I will show you how to clone a repo, create a repo, and how to push code to GitHub so that you guys can actually be able to clone this repo, and then you'll have all the code with me each and every day. So last week, we actually learned functions, and we said a function is basically a piece of code that does or achieves some kind of functionality. Okay, for example, you want a function that actually calculates the area of a circle. Well, let's create that. We'll go here and I'll do this. I'll create a new function and I'll say function, okay, examples.js. Now let's create a function, okay? Let's create a function. And this function, what it does is that calculates, okay, the area, okay, of a circle. We know very well an area of a circle. What you have to do is basically you have to say pi r squared, right? So it's pi multiplied by radius, okay, and multiplied by radius, okay? That's what it means by pi r squared, multiplied by radius itself. All right, we know very well that's how it goes. So the first thing you have to do is you have to create the function of that area. You have to say function, okay? And then give the name of that function. Okay, the function is called calculate, okay? Calculate circle, okay, area. Just give it a name over there. And then we said, that's how you'll create it, okay? Let me admit this. Now, you have to understand that every function, okay? A function can contain something's called arguments, okay? So it can contain arguments. Now, what is an argument? An argument is something that needs, it's like some data, okay? It's like some data to be passed later on onto that function, okay? So this is some data to be passed on, okay, later on, okay? When the function is being executed, okay? So when the function is later on being executed, you'll need this argument. So we will pass in some argument here. And in this case, our argument is, for example, of course, we need this function to take some argument. And the argument that it will actually take is the radius. So, okay, so what's the argument here? Okay, what's the argument on this function? The argument on this function is the radius, okay, that we will require later on, okay? When, okay, we want to calculate, okay, a certain radius of a circle. So that's what it means by basically an argument. I'm just trying to do this so that you can understand what I'm trying to do. So of course, we will need an argument of a radius so that later on, when we call calculate area, we will pass in some radius, for example, over 2. And basically, when we pass this 2, we will get some area here, and maybe the area will be like 22, for example. You can also, when we call calculate area again, and maybe pass in a 3, it will pass in another area over here. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So this is the argument radius, and this is the exact value that we will pass. Let's go ahead and do this. Okay, We know very well for us to actually say let area, we will create here and say let area, okay, is equal to a 0. For now, we will just put it as 0, okay? Or we'll put it null. And then we can come and say reinitialize that area, and you say area, okay? I have this thing that is actually auto-completing for me, but this is how I'll actually do it. I'll say area is equal to math, okay, dot pi. Math.pi, it is what we said here, pi. So there's a function called math that has a lot of functionality. Right now, if I do math, okay, the math object, and then I do dot, you'll see a lot of methods over here. You see floor, max, mean, round, random, and a lot of maths functionality. For example, if I had two values like 21 and 23, and then I said math.min of those values, it will give me the minimum value of those values. So basically, that's what it means by the math object. It contains a lot of math functionalities inside them. One of it is math.pi.
I can't hear anything, no. I can't hear you.
Same here.
I'm muted. Okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, guys, I think I was muted. Can you hear me? Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Now, what I was trying to say here, I passed in I said let area, which is the value that I need to return, is equal to 0 initially. And then area, I initialized area with math.pi, where math actually contains a lot of objects inside it. For example, if I was to say math.max, and then I pass in some two values, as you can see, it is expecting an array of values. So if I was to pass in some values over here, maybe of a certain number, maybe like 22 and 23. So 23 will be the max of that value. So math object has a lot of math, has a lot of, has a lot of objects that we can actually use. Okay, so one of it is math.pi. We can use a constant pi to calculate the area of that circle. So for example, if I have I say area is equal to 0, I can rationalize this area by saying area is equal to math.pi multiplied by radius, and then I can return that area back to as the value, because a return keyword is actually used to return back the value of a certain function. Okay, that's what it's actually used for. So it returns back that value back to that function. So I'm returning back this value over here. Now, for me to actually for me to actually see the value, I have to say console.log. Okay. Give me a second. I'll have to change my Wi-Fi here. Okay. Okay, good. It has changed. Now, I want to know what is this value. I'll pass in inside the console.log, and I'll do the same thing for this CLG, and I'll pass in inside this console.log over here. Okay. So, you know, like last time, things were not printing because we were not printing the values of that function. Basically, that's why we were having some problem. And I just figured it out. On the console, it will print out automatically, but here it will not print automatically. You'll have to pass in the console.log. Now, when we run it, and you can see over here, we have 152, okay, as the area for this. And we have the value of this area as 153 point that. Okay, that's how you, that's what it means by a function. But basically, a function is something that actually calculates a certain functionality, a certain piece of code. It could be a function like this, like my function over here, which is basically connecting to some, it is trying to insert some documents into a MongoDB cluster, for example. So I have some collection somewhere where I'm calling that connection. And once I create the connection, I'm creating a collection by calling the database that I've actually created from that database by saying database.connection of that collection. And that will create for me that connection. And from that collection now, I can do some queries, for example, collections.find, and I can pass in some query from over there, and you can go ahead and connect for me and get for me that connection of a certain query where edge limits are of 30. And I can, for example, so you can see this is just a function that is trying to do what? It's trying to query some data by finding and then returning those documents once they are actually found. And if that's actually doesn't happen, it returns an error. So that's what it means by a function, okay? So I think I've actually repeated a function very well, okay? I can see there's somebody waiting. I don't know, I'm not sure. Maybe they're waiting. There's a team chat here. I can see some messages. Let me see what's happening here. Okay, no sound again. Okay. All right. I think everybody can now hear me. I think there's a sound. All right. Now, what was this? Today we actually wanted to do something else. We wanted to do something called objects. Okay. And I hope maybe there's time enough. I don't know how long it will actually take. We don't want to be logged out quickly, like last time. And what I will do is, I'll check the time over here so that I can know how long am I taking. All right. Because I'm using this thing for only 40 minutes and it's giving us 40 minutes of free. That's even, they're even kind enough to give us 40. All right, because 40 minutes, it's a lot of minutes. You can actually change your life with 40 minutes. Objects, guys, objects. This is what we want to do today. I'll go ahead and create a new file called objects.js. Good. Today we want to learn objects. What do we want to achieve on objects? Now, be with me, okay? Because we are on number 7 today, and I will rename it and say number 7. It's like we are on week 7 here if we were doing weekly, but because it's just been 7 weeks, we are learning a lot and we are here on number 7. We want to learn objects today. Okay, objects. So what is an object, if I may ask? This is the first question I should actually answer. So an object, anything that holds data is called a data structure. First of all, you have to understand what is a data structure. So anything that holds data is a data structure. All right. Anything that holds data is a data structure. Very well. Now, if I know that anything that holds data is a data structure, I can say objects are data structures that are used to store keyed collections of data. Okay. So that's what objects are. Objects are DS, are data structures. Okay. That are collections of keyed values pairs. Okay. So they hold these key value pairs, and you'll have like something like this. This is an object. Okay. This is an object. Very well. This is an object. Now, for you to actually write an object, okay, you'll have to pass in a key and you'll have to pass in a value. And then you'll have to pass in a key, All right, let me admit another person over here, and then you'll have to pass in a value like that. And then you'll have to pass in a key and a value. So you can see each and every time you're passing in a key and a value, and that's how it looks like. So that's what is an object. You'll always have a key and a value, but closed under this, what can I call them, parentheses, or curly braces. I think they're curly braces. So they are closed under curly braces. Let's create an example of an object. And if I go ahead and do this over here, I can come and say, let me right click and I'll hit inspect. And in my console over here, let me clear and just let me do this just like that. Okay, it's giving me an empty object and it's saying prototype of what? Object. Are you seeing that? So this prototype of object has a lot of functionality inside them. For example, dot to string, that is prototype, that local to string, that has all these things. Okay, constructor, and you can go ahead and see more and more of how you can actually work with that object itself. Okay, so by just opening the curly braces, you're already creating an empty object. Now, let's go ahead and do this. We will come here and we will create an empty object. We will say, let's, as I told you, for you to actually put something into the memory, you'll have to assign it a name. Let's create a new person over here and say, let person is equal to an empty object. Okay. Now, if I say console.log CLG and I say type of, all right, let me put type of this person. Basically, the keyword type of is used to check the type of a certain variable. For example, what is the type of this variable right now? The type of this variable is an object, okay? So if you want to understand what it means by of a certain type, just say type of. For example, right now, if I say let name is equal to Aladdin, okay? And I say here, console.log type of name, okay? It will give me a string. Just imagine it will give me a string because it's a string. You can see here it's saying string, okay? So type of is used to give what? Is just used to give the type of that thing that you have actually created. Right now we have created an empty object here. Nothing, it's not a big deal, but you know, there's actually ways of how we can add data. So let's add some data to the object, okay? We need to add some data to the object. And how do you add some data to the object? You will have to put something called a dot notation. So let's use something called a dot notation. So we'll use a dot notation over here where you say the object that you have actually named dot, okay? All right, dot the key that you want to pass, okay? That's how you say it. So you say object name, okay, dot key name is equal to the value. That's why we're saying it's a key and the value. That's how you say it. So object name is the person. The key here, for example, is what? Let's say is the first name. Okay, we want to pass in some first name to this, and you can say the first name is Aladdin. Let's pass in another key value, and you can say person.last name is equal to Turing. And you can come here and say console.log, and we can say person. Now let's log in this person, and we will clear here, and we will see the values of what were added to that person. When we run this, we find it's an object right now, okay, like this. It has a key of a first name and Aladdin and a last name of Turing. By just saying person.first name Aladdin, person.last name is equal to Turing, you have added some data to this object here, okay? You have added some data to this empty object that you created, all right? As easy as that. Now, the other way to actually add some data to it, okay? Let's say, for example, how is this important? How is this dot notation actually important when we want to use it? For example, on backend, when we create a RESTful API, okay, when we create a RESTful API, okay, let's create a RESTful Node Express API, okay, API. So For this, I'll create a post API. I'll say, for example, app. Okay. Right now, I don't have this app. For me to actually express to use it, I'll have to. Let me not take you to backend right now because I'll have to like const express is going to require express, and I don't have the node modules with me. But this is how I'll actually have done it. Like I'll have to express to use this, and then after I require the express, I can get the app. Now I can say app, okay, dot get, for example, okay. I can get from that where I pass in the request and the response, okay. Now, the request is what is coming from the client, okay. So if I was to change it from post, sometimes you may request a certain index or from the request that is actually coming. And maybe I need to pass in, let me pass in some index to it, okay? Some index of find index, okay? Into the rec, okay? Into the rec incoming, okay? All right, so, and I can say const find index, okay? For example, is equal to rec.body, where I'm saying rec.body is equal to rec.body.find index of find index of an item, and that item is equal to item.name of Aladdin, for example, or maybe item dot rec.find index, rec.body.find index of maybe a function of return index, okay. And maybe this one is returning back to this index. So it's important if you actually understand how to work with these stuffs, because they'll come actually handy later on. For now, it's just some basics. Once we get to backend, you'll actually learn these stuffs. Now, objects can contain all types of data, okay? This is another thing, okay? Objects can contain all types of data, all right? We just have to understand that. Let's create a new info. Let's say like const my info, okay? Your information by the government can contain a lot of things. One of it, for example, this is a string over here, okay? This is a string. And you can see this here, it's a number, okay? Or an integer. And here are your hobbies, which it's containing an array, okay? An array of your hobbies, okay? And this one here is contained is married, it's a Boolean. Then next, you can also contain a function, okay? Okay, let's create a new function here and say function, function, for example, grades, okay? Let's create some grades here where we will actually return back a function. Why is it giving me an error? It's because I did not pass a comma. Now remember, you have to pass in a comma each and every time, so that when you are passing in, as you can see over here, after every key and value, pass in a comma. Key and value, pass in a comma. Key and value, pass in a comma, okay? So let me put some notes here also. Add some commas, okay? After every key value pair. Good. So that you don't get that error. So you can even pass in a function. So a function, for example, like function grades, it's saying type n here. So let's do this. We can assign this function a pair, because right now this function is the value, but what is its key? Because each and every value here has a key, right? Maybe a key here, it's min grade. Let's say min grade, it's the key, and you can say min grade, and the value is this function, and maybe this function has to return the min grades, the mean grade back to us as a function. And then maybe it's returning your min grade is equal to plus min grade, right? It's returning back to this value. So you have this key and this value like that. You can also have, we can also have, we said this is a function. Another thing also is we can also have objects inside objects, okay? This is really fun. You can also have objects, all right? Inside objects, all right? Let's create another object. For example, this is an object of an address here, and we are basically passing an address. We have to pass in a comma here, as I told you, so that you can not get an error. Just make sure that you do that. We can also have an object of an object like that. And you can see basically we have two objects here where we have a street and we have a city of New York. So objects can contain a lot of info. And right now, if we just do this, we come and say console.log and we pass in my info right here. And we run this. Let me clear and let's run this. You can see it's printing all this object over here, which has a name, Aladdin, age 30, hobbies, is married, function, it's returning back the function, and the address is returning back that object. So an object can contain an object can contain an array, an object can contain a Boolean, it can contain all data types. I think it's a good refresher for data types, all right? Now, I'm giving you another example over here. Let's create an object, okay, of objects. Okay, let's create an object of objects. Now, this is an object of object. For example, we can create const cars, okay, is equal to an object, right? Then inside this cars, we can have a lot of other objects. For example, we can have a Honda, we can have a Toyota, and we can have a Nissan. So this Honda can have its own model, its own price, and everything. So the time is out. We are running out of time. We will actually stop here. We have 9 minutes. Let's continue with this. Okay. So with these 9 minutes, we'll try to create I'll just use the tab 9 because it's auto-completing for me because I'm just actually teaching anyway. So you can see we have created 3 objects here. One is Honda, one is Toyota, and the other one is Nissan. And then there's a model inside it, and then it has a car and has a year. Okay. Now, next, what we can do, if you right now log this car and say console.log car, it will print for you the whole object, right? Let's clear and let's run this. And you can see it printed for us the whole object, and it's saying car is not defined. Const cars or cars, it should be cars, not car. Okay. So const cars is, let's clear and run that. And you can see it's printing for us the whole object over here. Good. This will print for us the whole object like this. Let's come here and do this. And I will put this into what? Let me format. I'll put that into some comments. We have 8 minutes, so let's do this. Let's say, for example, you want to specifically do this. We want to display the data of this Honda right now. Instead of this, let's create an array of objects. Let's change this to an array and put that, and remove this over here and make it as an array of objects. That will be better to actually try to do what I'm trying to say. Let's run this, and you can see it's returning for us an array of objects here. Basically, this should be, let's say, an object where I'll do this, okay? I'll put this comma over here, and I'll remove this comma here, and I'll put it here, okay? Because an array of object has a different syntax, okay? And I'll put it over there. And this is, for every key and value has to be in quotes. Don't forget that, okay? So I have a key and a value. And this brand of Toyota, like that. Let me right click and format first. Okay. Okay, what's going on? Okay. All right, brand. Let me just have the brands. I don't need these. Okay. I don't need these. All right. Let me remove that and let me format. All right. Now, I will format with Prettier. Format with Prettier. Good. Oh, that's much pretty. Okay. So we have an array of objects here. It's an array which inside contains objects, and each object has a model and has the color and has a year. All right, so I'll go ahead and right click and run that again. And you can see it's returning me for me an array of the data. Now, let's do this. I'll remove this and say, let's access data of GTR. Good. For me to actually say get the data of GTR, since this is an array, I will check what is the index of GTR object. It is at index 2 because this one is at index 0, index 1, and index 2. I can come here and say CLG, which is console.log, cars into brackets, okay, 2, okay. Sorry, I can pass in cars at 2. Let me make sure that this one is cars. Sorry for that. And when I run this, you can see it's returning the object at that array. It's saying the model is GTR, color is blue, and year is 2018. Okay. Now, I want to return, okay, the model, okay, the model of GTR. Now, how do I do it? The model of GTR. How can I do it? Okay, I can say console.log, okay, CLG, console.log, I can say cars, okay, cars, into brackets 2, and then after that, I can put a dot notation, because now, since it's returning for me this object, I said the only way you can access a data of a certain object is by using dot notation. Like for example, here, when I say person.name, it will give me Aladdin. So here, person, here, car at this object. When I want the model, I can say dot model, like that. And this will give me GTR. Let's run that and confirm. And you can see it's returning for me GTR. So just playing around with the data, we will actually stop this recording right now. Then for the next class, we will continue learning objects, because objects are a bit complicated and they are actually the model of the whole front-end architecture. If you understand how to work with models and how they actually function, working with data and RESTful APIs will be really, really easy, because RESTful APIs always come in form of this data. So without any other question, I'd love to hear back from you guys if you have any questions. So if you don't have any question, we'll just go ahead and close this meeting for today. But I'll give you an assignment. Just remember, please work it out until you solve it. Don't use ChatGPT, because by using ChatGPT, you're not learning. Just ask, I'm actually stuck over here. What should I do? Then later on, once you have actually understood the whole basics, then you can use ChatGPT to actually solve your problems. But assignments are not solved with ChatGPT. Be disciplined on your side, and you'll always thank yourself. Any other questions? Please ask a question. If you have a question, please ask it. Anyone with a question? We have 3 minutes. We have a very long time for QA, questions and answers. Anyone with a question? You can ask. No one with a question? Okay, so if no one has a question, we can actually I'll see you tomorrow, okay? I'll see you tomorrow, and we will continue with objects from where we actually left, all right? I've been a little bit busy, but as I told you, apart from just being busy, I will always be available for you guys. You can just ask questions, and how will I, this is my first meeting, how will I capture you? We have a YouTube channel, so when you go to Tech with Gen Z on YouTube, just go to YouTube, and when you go to YouTube, just search Tech with Gen Z. It will actually come there, and you can access all the meetings that we've been having. Okay, so go to YouTube. When you're on YouTube, search Tech with Gen Z on YouTube. I'm recording all these things. Tech with Gen Z. Okay. Tech with Gen Z. All right, I changed it from Tech with Ali to Tech with Gen Z, because Tech with Ali, there was also another person who was using Tech with Gen Z. So this is our channel here. When you open it, I'm uploading each and everything on playlists. Okay, so you can see we have 18 subscribers. You can tell other people to actually subscribe also. Okay, so you can see if you want to learn JavaScript, just open JavaScript over here, and then you will see it will start from JavaScript variables. So you can start from the first video we actually had, almost like 48 minutes, and just learn everything over there until the last video, which is functions, which we did last week. And this one will also be uploaded on the playlist. So as usual. So without further ado, thank you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. I don't know how to stop the video as usual. It's crazy. It's crazy. Okay. It's really crazy. I think it's here. I can come here and pause and stop.